Town of North Smithfield Planning Board meeting for May 9th, 2024 is... it was on. Okay. So the Town of North Smithfield Planning Board meeting for Thursday, May 9th, 2024 is... Okay, that's the mic. That's a microphone issue. Are we all set? There we go. Take 3. Town of North Smithfield Planning Board meeting for Thursday, May 9th, 2024 is called to order at 7 p.m. First thing on the agenda is our roll call. Dr. Benoit? Here. Ms. Marandola? Here. Dr. Roberts? Here. Mr. Porter? Here. Ms. Menard? Here. Ms. Ramos? Here. And the chair is here. Next on the agenda, do we have some minutes to review here? Review and approval the April 11th Planning Board meeting and the joint Planning Board ZBR meeting. So, give you a chance to look those over. Already looked them over. Anything, any questions, concerns, corrections?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I think we need, well, first for the Planning Board minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the April 11th, 2024 Planning Board meeting minutes.
Second?
Second.
I think we have a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the April 11th, 2024 Joint Planning Board ZBR Workshop meeting minutes.
And a second?
Second.
And we have a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Both sets of planning board meeting minutes are approved as is. Thank you. Disclosure. Do any planning board members need to disclose any potential conflicts on the matters before the board this evening? Hearing none. Disclosure notice. Any planning board members need to disclose any ex parte communications about any contested or material adjudicatory facts or opinions concerning the merits of any application before the board this evening? None? We'll move on. Declaration of our voting members. There'll be Dr. Benoit, Dr. Roberts, Mr. Porter, Mr. Menard, and myself. So first item of business. Public hearing, Unified Development Review, American Tower. Mr. Crullo.
Mr. Chairman, this is an application that was heard by the Planning Board in March 2024. We got a full presentation at that meeting. The board did vote to grant dimensional variance, a special use permit, and to grant a combined preliminary final approval. There was, however, discovered after the meeting a defect in the notice, and erring on the side of caution. The attorney is here to see if anyone is here as a follow-up to that meeting. If they are, he's ready to give a full presentation. If not, I think he'll be discussing with the board about just reaffirming the vote that they took at the last meeting. The project is pre-existing. It's already been reviewed by the board. So if there's anyone else here in the audience that wasn't here at the last meeting, or anyone here that has any questions or concerns, we would ask that they would present themselves so we would know whether we need a full presentation.
So we need to open up a public hearing then?
Yes.
So we need a motion for that, please?
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
In a second?
Second.
Those in favor? Aye. The public hearing is opened at 7:04. So if you could just come up to the podium, introduce yourself. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Frank Lombardo. I live in Laurelwood Community, unit number 24. I was at the last meeting. Oops. Hello. I was at the last meeting, and I had some concerns. I still have them. The first one today is this for the temporary tower or the permanent tower?
Good evening. Just for the record, my name is Edward Parry. I'm an attorney at Brown Rudnick here representing American Tower. First of all, my apologies for this redo because I was the one who neglected to publish in the newspaper. Somewhat of a new process, but we didn't do it. Abutters were notified. I also apologize to any of the abutters who had to come back out and received a second notice from us. So for all the inconvenience, my apologies. So this is the temporary facility. We did obtain a temporary building permit pursuant to the building code based on the proceedings. The tower was erected, I think, within the last couple of days. I did drive by the site on the way here. So that is the temporary location. The permanent location, which hasn't been established yet, we expect it's going to be further away from Mr. Lombardo's unit on the property, but that is the location of the permanent only.
Okay. Mr. Carrillo, what's the,
You said
I'm sorry, the temporary only.
thank you.
Temporary only.
Mr. Carrillo, is there an expiration date on the temporary permit?
It was 2 years.
Okay, thank you.
So just to clarify and be clear, and I know there was some question on this previously, there was some confusion as to whether it was a permanent or temporary location. There was some paperwork that had been circulating for various reasons. I'm not sure, but just to be clear, this is a temporary tower, and at the time that there is going to be a location of a permanent tower, there will be new hearing, new notice. Planning board will have a hearing. There will be certified mail to the abutters as is required, and a new site, may not necessarily be this site or even close to this site, will be heard at that time. This is strictly the temporary tower. It is not intentionally permanent tower.
That's correct.
Okay, with that temporary tower, I do have a copy of the building permit. There's nothing there that says temporary. But with that, there's a stamp on it of April 1st by the building official. So it seems that the meeting we're having tonight is like a done deal, because they are on the site as we speak, and they're installed. The tower's, the base of the tower, I guess, is already installed. So I find this meeting somewhat hypocritical, because you're having the meeting, but yet they're building on it. You gave them the approval in April, so why are we even discussing it? It seems that the town's made a decision, because quite honestly, you're wasting our money having something that you pre-approved. Now, I've been in the town just 3 short years, and is this the way you folks want to be operating?
I'll let the attorney address most of what you just said. However, there was a hearing. You did receive certified mail notice. You were present at the hearing. The board heard all the testimony. All the evidence was entered into the record. The board, in good faith, voted on that. The attorney discovered that there was an error in notice, and on the, erring on the side of caution, decided to re-notify everybody, have a re-hearing. So, with regard to that tower being under construction, there was an approval. It was granted after the fact. It was discovered that there was an error in notice. No one's fault, and we're here to resolve that today. So, no, normally that wouldn't happen. Okay?
I want to make sure.
And if I could just ask the attorney, when was the error discovered?
The error was discovered when the planning department asked me for the affidavit of publication and a butters list. So I'd say it was a couple of weeks after the hearing.
So probably after the permit was issued?
I would say so,
Right.
yes. And let me just say something about the building permit, because we've been working with the town's water department. We need, as we testified and presented evidence, we need to get off that water tank, which is adjacent to it. To condense time as much as we could, we approached the building department. We took the building permit at risk, so it's not a done deal. It's not a putting the cart before the horse. The building inspector has a notice from me that we've done this at our own risk. It was only to facilitate getting the work done on the water tank, get it installed, but we know we still need the approval. The only thing we lacked was that newspaper publication. The butters have been notified now twice. All the evidence was heard. Again, I'm happy to answer any specific questions.
So if I could, I just wanted to make sure that
Yep.
the permit was issued prior to the mistake being noted. So as Mr. Carrillo said, everything was done in good faith. Everybody thought we had done everything correctly, but then the error was discovered. So I would ask the solicitor to address that concern.
Well, thank you. I don't know if there's anything I can add to it other than it's about notice due process, giving you notice and an opportunity to be heard. The attorneys testified in good faith that he noticed it according to the intention of our town planner. It was after the permit was already given its due process of public hearing, and here you are able to voice your concerns. I mean, I'm what I had it up.
heard what you said, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So it's about notice and due process. The attorney's already pointed out that it was his error. He brought it to the attention of the town planner after the fact that there had been a meeting with adequate due process and the decision made on the permit, and now you're able to. I don't see any issues with it.
Okay. If I may, on one other point on the building permit,
Certainly.
I just noticed, just sitting down reading, it says, this is to certify that the Rhode Island contractor, and they put the person's name there, who the contractor is. That contractor is not a Rhode Island contractor. They're from New Hampshire. So you probably ought to take a look at this process, and if you're going to put stuff in there that's factual, you need to look at that, because the contractor is not a Rhode Island contractor. So
Mr. Carrillo?
if you could take note on that.
I mean,
The other comments I have, I
just-
did make
if I
some.
could, I think
at
we
the-
should address that, just because obviously if it's a New Hampshire contractor, but if they're licensed to do business in Rhode Island, I mean, where they're headquartered isn't what's important. It's
Right,
where
I
they're
just went on
licensed
the
to work.
internet, and that's what it said. So if they have a division here, I don't know that. I just went on the internet, what it said.
Mr. Carrillo, do we have any information on the contractor and their ability to do business in Rhode Island?
I do not. If you had a question with regard to the building permit, I suggest you direct that to the building official, the building office. They'll be able to respond to that for you.
Okay, well, this is the first opportunity I had. This was the first opportunity I had to bring
Fair
it
enough,
to your
but
attention.
to Mr. Carrillo's point, it's more of
Oh,
it's more of a building question, because they're the ones that issued that.
okay.
and we
No, I
don't.
understand that.
Okay.
But I thought this was a joint building and planning. This is,
No, this is planning.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
All right. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
I did bring other points up at the last meeting. I just want to reiterate those. I spoke to the lawyer after the fact, and two things. The first thing we talked about was the drop zone. The tower's 145 feet, and if it falls, and the discussion happened, well, they rarely fall. Well, as it turned out, 2 weeks after the meeting that we had, a cell phone tower fell in Bristol. It's documented. I think it was March 25th that it fell. So it does happen. I hope it doesn't happen here, but, you know, we ought to do this on the side of caution and having these type of towers here. The other thing on this, the transparency issue. I keep on hearing and I keep on seeing that the property in which the towers are going to be on is 51 Industrial Road. It is, in fact, on Industrial Road, or the property is located there. But the actual site of, the actual location of it, and when Verizon sent a letter in to the building department, I believe, last year, they specifically said the site was going to be 40 Comstock Road. Well, if you look at the map, 51 Industrial Road, the front of it is on Industrial Road, and the back of it is on Comstock Road.
Mm-hmm.
So for the sake of transparency, I think you all should know that you need to be a little bit clearer in saying that the physical location is actually probably about 20 feet away from the road, Comstock Road. Because that got everybody confused, because part of the people that live in my community said, it's on Industrial Road. I even said it. It's on Industrial Road, not a big deal. The drop zone won't hit us. Wrong. It's going to be put at the back side of the property, which is located on Comstock Road. So it's like a double talk. And I don't appreciate that. And I'm quite sure the people in my community don't like that
Well,
either.
what is the address of the property?
Well, if you look at the documentation, it's going to be 51 Industrial Road. But if you actually go to the site, of which I have been there twice, okay, it's roughly about 20 feet, maybe 25 feet. I have pictures if you want, from Comstock Road. So why did Verizon say put it at 40 Comstock Road? And why is the company that is installing the tower saying it's on 51 Industrial Road? You know, I know it sounds like a matter of semantics, but really it's not.
It's a discrepancy. It's a discrepancy between Verizon certainly and the contractor, it sounds like, correct?
Exactly, but they're communicating that to us. The letters that we received from Verizon, they said 40 Comstock. I know that letter is null and void because Rhode Island laws changed to some degree, but the reality is it is on Comstock Road. The property is on 51. The back side of that property is on. So it's very, very confusing. Now, the other thing was, after we had the meeting, The lawyer came up to me and said, by the way, it's not going to be there. It's going to be moved to the front of the property of 51. So he led me to believe that it was going to be in front of the property. No, no. Again, the semantics and the, the juggling act kicks in to say, wait a minute, can you please be a little more specific, because the drop zone. And the other thing I was concerned about is it's near the water tower, and I know they got to do some rehab, not a problem at all. But again, March 25th in Bristol, the tower fell. Luckily, it was just wooded area. There was no harm to anyone. But now the water tower is maybe 20, 30 feet away from the cell tower. God forbid, if it falls, and it falls the wrong way, you won't have loss of life, but you may have loss of water. So that's the concern that I've always had from day one. I'm not totally against towers. I think they belong in the right place, where the quality of life of people is not impacted. All right, well, that's that on that. So in essence, I guess I want to summarize by saying the process needs to be a little bit more transparent. And insofar as, again, I'm not against the cell tower, but in my travels in the last couple of weeks, we were in New Jersey, and we took pictures of all cell towers. This is a very appropriate one to put over there. It's camouflage. It's not an eyesore. The quality of life would be okay, because they already said that the radiation effect is low. So, again, can they consider something like this? Whether this is the temporary or the permanent? And I could show you could take a picture of it if you like. Okay, putting something like this up. Again, it's all about quality of life. So, whatever you folks could do, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
Do you want the picture later?
I'm familiar with it.
Is there anything you'd like to respond to?
Yeah, just a couple of corrections. So we take the street address from the town's records. So this property has frontage along Industrial, it does also abut Comstock. So I have seen different addresses used, but 51 Industrial is the proper address. Plans have always been available, so you can go and see where it's located. The folks on Comstock all got public notice. The idea that this is somehow nefarious or not transparent is an unfair statement.
Yeah, I
for what we've
agree
been
that
through.
the use of the word transparent implies that somebody was trying to hide something.
Right.
There may be discrepancies. Discrepancies are different than transparency. And, yeah, and if you'd like a chance to speak, raise your hand and I'll let you come up and speak. But the inference is negative when someone
Correct.
says this is a transparency issue. And I'm saying this was not a transparency issue. It was a discrepancy, certainly, Verizon versus someone else using different addresses for what is arguably the same property. And those kinds of things need to be caught. I don't know where the right place to catch it, because certainly we've been going with 51 Comstock Road the entire time. So it might be another thing to bring up with the building inspector or the building office when you bring that up, because I think they'd be more involved at that level of detail. Yep.
And this is the temporary installation, as I said, so when I did speak to Mr. Lombardo after the hearing, I told him if we're staying on this lot, which I think we're going to, the tower would be moving toward the front, so we would not be in the location we've proposed. We've selected a different location, we've leased it, but we haven't permitted it. So it wasn't a reference to, we moved the temporary tower, because I have no authority to do that. You approved it at its location. But when the permanent comes in, if we use this lot, it will be moved towards industrial.
What about the suggestion he raises on the type of tower that's erected?
Yeah,
I mean, we're not at the point of the permanent tower, so specifically the temporary.
Right, so the temporary, we can't do a tree as a temporary. These are, designed to code, so as far as the fall zone, they do bend over. They're a newer tower design. I am familiar with the site in Bristol. It did crack and break at about 30 or 40 feet up on the tower, so it doesn't tip over. It broke. They're looking into, what happened in that instance, but there are codes. We comply with the codes. We've satisfied the building official, both for the temporary, and when we come in for the permanent, we'll also have to show that we comply with the codes.
Okay. But this could influence the permanent, the design of the permanent.
Certainly, I mean, that's something that's up to the board as we go through that process,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I forgot one other point. And I will take it up with the building department,
Thank you.
but the building permit states not only a temporary tower, but also depicts, I'll read it, plans depict a 50 by 50 lease space for future construction of a permanent tower. So I'm a little confused why they're both on one permit when you're saying all that dialogue will come up at a future point of where it's going to be and how this and how that's going to be. So I'm confused.
Mr. Crowe, can you explain a little bit on the permit side?
I cannot. The permits for a temporary tower, they are not authorized to install a permanent tower, nor can they, nor will they get a permit to install a permanent tower until it comes before this board and gets approval. A decision is rendered, that decision is recorded. So there will be opportunity in the future when they come back for the permanent tower for a new hearing, any comment, any testimony.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure on what the permit says. If you had issues with the permit, I would direct you to the building official in the building office. They'll be able to answer that question. I cannot answer that. I'm not the building official.
Okay, I will address it, but since I brought it up, and we keep on talking about the permanent will be later, I want at least on record that this permit states a permanent tower as well, and like you just said, the design hasn't been started, so, but I think this is premature. I think this is premature insofar as a permanent tower.
I think everything you brought up is worth looking into because it may be a process issue, premature in putting that information on, but I think we need to determine that.
Okay, I will go to the building department. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have anything further to?
No, so we're back here this evening. We need a special permit. We need some variance relief from the side yard setback, front yard setback, rear yard setback, just for the temporary, and I will again confirm for the board.
Okay.
This is for the temporary installation. No permanent, notwithstanding whatever is on a form for the building permit, which can be rectified. We fully understand, American Tower fully understands. This is temporary. The approval that was granted was for a 24-month period. We're satisfied with that, and by then, we expect we'll find a new location.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you looking for a kind of a reapproval or?
I think the board should
Right.
make a motion if, I don't know if there's any further testimony.
Well, yeah, hang on. I just want to get that clarified
Yeah,
before we
yeah,
go
so
back.
we were
the
looking for a
public.
motion to reaffirm or confirm the prior vote.
And we could add at that time clear language to make sure that it's understood that there's not an approval for the permanent, for the construction of a permanent.
You could make that statement. I don't think anyone have an objection to that. That's what the application is for, so it's,
Right. Just
It's-
to clarify the discrepancy on the permit.
Yeah, our application to the planning board was for a temporary. I can't,
Absolutely.
I can't
That's all we're,
tell you why it carried over. Maybe, a contractor described for the building official what they were applying for. Everything I submitted here is for a temporary.
gotcha, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on this project from the public? Anybody else wish to speak, raise concerns? No? Okay, I'd be looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
We have a second. Those in favor? Opposed? No? The public hearing is closed.
Thank you.
In the interest of accuracy, there is no industrial road. It is industrial drive. I hope all our minutes will reflect such. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, so we've completed the public hearing, so at this point, any further discussion before a motion made? I don't think it's harmful to add some language to clarify that this is for the temporary only, that no permit will be issued for the permanent at this time.
yeah, I think a motion to the effect that reconfirming the authorization of the temporary only, and I have a draft copy of the decision letter, and it clearly states that it is requesting a temporary wireless communication facility. So that's, in the decision letter, there'll be 2 decision letters recorded, one for the zoning relief and one for the plan review, and they both clearly will state temporary. And if the board cares to state that onto the record, I think that would be acceptable too.
Thoughts?
That's fine.
Yeah, I think we should state that for the record, that this is for the temporary only, just to clarify, okay?
I'll make a motion that we reaffirm the March 14th, 2024 motion for the proposed temporary cell phone tower.
Okay. Do we have a second? We have a second for Dr. Benoit. Roll call vote, Dr. Benoit?
Yes.
Ms. Dr.
Yes.
Ms. Porter? Ms. Menard? And the chair votes yes. So, okay, we're good. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you all. And my apologies again.
It's all right. All right, next item of business. The next item of business, pre-application concept review, Pines Apartments. Any introductory comments, Mr. Carrillo?
This is a continuation of the pre-app meeting from last month with regard to the Pines application. Well, there's no application to date, but the board agreed and the applicant agreed to continue the meeting to this evening to allow public comment. I think that the applicant and his engineer are here to respond to whatever they're prepared to respond to this evening. The attorney is certainly here also, but I think this is more to hear, comments from the general public than to actually hear from the applicant, but they are here to respond if necessary.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kelly Morris-Salvatore. I represent the applicant. And again, we are here on a pre-application, so we don't expect any votes tonight. We hope that we get some input from you and from the neighbors. I do want to just follow up. I had offered my email address. I did not get any emails from any of the neighbors. There was a question last month about the monitoring agency. So again, I'm not an expert, but the process is generally that the applicant will get a certificate of eligibility from Rhode Island Housing. And with that, it will sort of approve the number of units and the percentage of affordable, which in this case is 100%. If you were to approve the application, Rhode Island Housing has about 13 listed monitoring agents around the state, which my client will choose one of them. And then they also have, if you can go right on the website, there's all kinds of form documents that will be approved by your solicitor with respect to deed restrictions, and then the monitoring agent is going to literally monitor the renter's income year by year by year to make sure at the cost of the developer and the property owner at that point, that those renters are meeting the qualifications for the low and moderate income housing. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. It's all controlled by Rhode Island Housing. I also just want the engineer to, we are gonna make a revision to the property based on a couple of comments. So if Nick, you wanna come up and just, but otherwise we're here to listen.
Right.
Thank you.
Sure. In light of an abutters comment.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
Oh,
Thank
sorry. Nicholas Pampiano, professional engineer, advanced civil design. Yeah, there was some comment from an abutter, an adjacent lot, about the location of his property, his rear yard to one of the buildings, building 2. So the owner has agreed to actually shift that over, probably just make building 2 and 3 combined and move it away from his property closer to the entrance. I can show you on the plan.
Please do.
So just remove that building from that location and just have probably a larger building right in that location.
Okay.
So he's willing to make that change. We just thought that we'd bring that up to the board.
Okay. Thank you. That's it? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, if they could, actually, if you could do it up on the screen,
Oh, sure. Okay.
because that's the one everybody can see.
So the existing building is building 1. This building is building 2, the 24 unit, 3 and 4. So what we'd be doing is removing the location of building 4, sliding it, possibly just making a larger building, number 3, in this area right here. pushing it away
Okay.
from that.
So eliminating 4 entirely,
Eliminating 4.
and therefore alleviating that concern for that abutter. Okay. Make sense? Okay. So we're going to have, obviously this is for the primary purpose of this meeting is to listen to all of you that are here for that. So what I'm going to ask first is kind of a show of hands for any of you that that anticipate wishing to speak. Okay. So I'm doing that only because we want to, my personal feeling, which not everybody agrees with, I'd rather not put a time limit on anybody's ability to speak, okay? What I'll ask of you, first of all, you come up, you introduce yourself, et cetera. If one of the people before you states, however eloquently, a concern that you share, please don't repeat it. Refer to it to kind of put another vote in that box, but just move on to new topics that haven't been brought up, okay? And if we can do that and be succinct, always address the board, and as you make your comments, we're going to gather them all, and then we're going to have the applicant come up and start addressing them, okay? Please do not engage in conversations with each other or with the applicant, okay? If we can do that, we'll capture all these concerns and questions, and then we'll get them answered as best we can. And if we have to revisit them, we'll do it iteratively, all right? Fair enough? Okay. Need a motion to open the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, it's not really a public hearing. It's a pre-application meeting with public testimony, so,
Okay. Informational hearing?
yeah.
Okay, informational hearing.
Make a motion to open the informational hearing.
We have several seconds. Those in favor? Aye. The informational hearing is open at 7:32. Who's up first? There you go.
My name is Linda Broad. I live directly across the street from the Pines at 1223. A few of the concerns that I have is, first we heard there were going to be 90 apartments, then we heard there were going to be 60. I'm not sure how many apartments there were going to be.
Is that 40? 62.
62 apartments. One of the other concerns I have, there's a list of them. It's going to increase the traffic on Pound Hill Road immensely. We have people who fly down Pound Hill Road. I've been there for 27 years. They fly down Pound Hill Road, coming from Burrville and Chepachet, because it's an easy cut through to get to 146. This many houses, and we're saying there's 2 cars for each person.
Please address this way.
2 cars for each person. That's more traffic. The road isn't all that great to begin with. Is the road going to be repaired? Will there be a traffic light by that section? Will there be one further down the road at Route 5 and Pound Hill Road for all the extra traffic? What's it going to do to the school system? These people have children, double the children in the classrooms. Our classrooms are jammed as it is to begin with. It puts a burden on the school system, on the fire department, on the police department. Right now, I believe the area has wells. I know in my area, I have a well. Are they going to continue, and how are they going to feed all these apartments on the well? Where are they going to get the water source from? Are they going to have them connect to sewer? And is that going to be a cost to us, even if we're not going to use it because we're still going to use our wells? And I know she said that they're going to monitor everything, but is there a guarantee, monitor their wages to make sure that they're complying with the rules to be able to get into the apartment? Is there a guarantee that there won't be any Section 8 housing in there? In the front of right onto Pound Hill Road, where the big hill is before you go up to the Pines, there's a cemetery there. So it's sacred ground. Are they going to encroach on that cemetery where the land is? And from the first, there's 7 houses just before Pound Hill Road. Our mailboxes are there. Are we going to have to move our mailboxes? Are we going to have to get secured mailboxes? Are we going to have to get locked mailboxes? I know it sounds stupid, but these are things I'm concerned about. I don't lock my door half the time. Am I going to start locking my door? Am I going to have to not leave things in my yard? Am I going to have to, again, get a new security mailbox? What else did I want to say? When they start the construction, how long would the construction take? What would be the hours of construction? Will they be starting at 6 in the morning? Will they be going to 6 at night? Will they be starting later? It's a residential area. How long is it going to take? Are we going to have to listen to bulldozers and tractors for 3-4 years? I don't think that that's conducive to the area. It's a nice, quiet little neighborhood. The neighbors all get along. I don't know that anybody really wants to have this built where the Pines is. And I guess one of the other concerns I have is I thought it was zoned as commercial. So meaning you could have a restaurant or a business there, but I didn't know that it was zoned also for housing. When did that change? Or has it changed?
That one-
Property's always been zoned for housing. The Pines is a pre-existing non-conforming use, so it's zoned residential.
Okay. And those are my questions. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Succinct list. Do you? Actually, why don't you respond now? Because that was a list. I think that, yeah, and some of them were topics we talked about in the first meeting, but I think it'd be good to go over, check off a bunch of items. And
So I just want to remind everyone, this is under a new state law. So previously, we would have had a master plan application with a conceptual review. Now the state forces us to provide all of the engineering all at once to you in one stage.
Right.
I actually preferred the master plan, preliminary plan. That's why we're here with a pre-app, because we want to get people's comments and your comments so that we can adequately address them at this one stage of review. So having said that, on traffic, we will present a traffic expert that will go through all of the questions that you have, what the levels of service will be near this property, the safety, the access.
yeah, I think we had discussed.
Yeah,
a
so I'm
traffic
just
study.
reiterating.
I mean, a formal traffic study.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's required at preliminary plan for any development. So we will be providing that. With regard to school-age children, I mean, in my experience, what I call ones and twos, 1 and 2 bedrooms do not produce a lot of school-age children. We are able, under the new state law, to propose all 3-bedroom units. We're not doing that. We understand that many communities are concerned and sensitive to the expense of school-age children. We're not proposing that at this time. We're proposing 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, which really limits the number of students that you're going to see. The wells, again, that'll be done engineering. It will also be done by, will it be the Board of Health with this type of facility? Yeah, so depending on what type of well, it will be vetted by your engineering department or your peer reviewer. It will be vetted by this board, and it will be presented by a professional engineer. With regard to monitoring, these monitoring agents are approved by Rhode Island Housing. The developer pays for that. I mean, I don't do the monitoring, but I think we can assure you that the people that will be there they won't be Section 8. This is not a Section 8 project. This is a low and moderate income project. So
that's a definitive statement.
it is. I mean, it's.
Just want to make sure.
We're here under the Low and Moderate Income Housing Act. It's a specific statute that allows additional density when we provide the town with affordable housing. So it will not be a Section 8 project. Regarding cemeteries, I mean, we can't encroach onto a cemetery, so that's not going to be an issue. Mailboxes, we're always happy to discuss mailbox issues but we'll have to understand the concerns about mailboxes. Construction, I don't want to commit to anything tonight, but we'll have more information at preliminary plan. But generally, for a project like this, you're talking about 24 months. And then Mr. Carullo also already answered the zoning question.
Also, in regards to the construction, I believe we've had other projects where we have put restrictions on the hours
Yeah.
of construction, correct?
We also have a noise ordinance that
Mm.
dictates that.
And then there's noise ordinance, okay.
Which we will comply with all ordinances.
And Mr. Menard, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I've been involved in construction projects, and there are set hours. I'm not so sure if it's by the town or by the state, but there are set start times and stop times. You know, so nobody can work till 9 o'clock at night. Can't
Right.
start at 5.
Right.
There are set hours.
I seem to remember some project where we put additional restrictions. We made it more conducive to
Right,
the.
which will be followed by
areas.
the building inspector.
Yep. Okay.
Okay? Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Mark,
Who's-
did you have something else to say?
I was just going to say that under the LMI, these are restricted units, and there is an obligation in a recorded restriction on the property that it would not be, I believe it's 30 years, a 30-year restriction that it be LMI, not Section 8. So you would need, they're deed restricted.
Okay, there you go.
And Mark, that 30 years could be extended. Because I believe I've seen some decisions that we go from 30 years to a 99 year.
Longest I've seen is 50.
Okay.
Okay.
50,
Wow.
the people in this room, all of us. Well,
Whoa, I don't know about that.
except Gary. Gary will still be running the show.
There you go. Thank you for waiting patiently.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. James DeSells, 499 Black Plain Road. Sorry. I am a licensed professional engineer in the state of Rhode Island. I am a licensed drinking water operator in the state of Rhode Island. And I have over 35 years of experience in the planning, design, construction, operation, and maintenance of public drinking water supplies. And I'm here to voice my concerns and really opposition regarding the proposed water supply for this project. I'm not opposed to the project, I'm opposed to the water supply. As proposed, this will become a public drinking water system. With withdrawals, I did some rough numbers today, between 20 and 25,000 gallons a day. From an aquifer that, one, is a stone's throw from a couple of listed Superfund sites. Two, is less than a stone's throw from 2 military installations. And we all know that military installations are not known for improving water quality in the area that they inhabit. We've all read or heard the stories about Camp Lejeune, where the actions of the military actually caused cancer and in some cases death to our United States Marines. On a local level, I challenge you all to Google Nike missile water contamination if you want an eye-opening experience. And, you know, while we have several families in the area that are already impacted by contaminated water, which is truly unfortunate, nobody should have to experience that, I still believe that we've been very lucky. We've dodged a bullet. It could have been much worse. That whole area could have contaminated wells. But keep in mind that the contamination is still out there, and things can change really quickly, especially when you introduce a new significant withdrawal, which could potentially alter groundwater flow patterns. I bring to your attention a couple of articles that appeared in the Valley Breeze, I assume at the behest of the town and EPA, and it appeared in March of 2015, and it was a similar one in May of 2016, and I'm going to read it to you. The North Smithfield Water and Sewer Department would like to remind residents in Stamina Mills and Forestdale area that their wells are not to be used for any springtime activities such as cleaning cars, watering lawns, etc. Bringing water from the well to the ground level can spread contamination and cause additional problems. The Environmental Protection Agency has deemed that area, due to groundwater patterns in proximity to the Stamina Mills Superfund site on School Street, contain wells on which pumping activities could draw contaminants from the groundwater affected by the site to the surface. Residents have been connected to town water supply, therefore, the well should not be used for any reason. And that appeared in the Valley Breeze twice, 2 years in a row. Yet here we are, listening to a proposal that would result in significant new well withdrawals in the range of 20 to 25,000 gallons a day from this tainted aquifer. Are we going to cross our fingers and gamble that it won't cause changes in the groundwater flow patterns that could potentially move contaminant plumes to new areas? And I'll refer you right back to that letter. They're worried about a guy on a Saturday afternoon washing his car, and we're going to put 62 houses on a public water system. And all this while EPA continues to promulgate new regulations, right? For chemicals we haven't even heard of at this point. Who heard of PFAS 5 years ago? And now, 2 weeks ago, they dropped a regulation that we're regulating it to 4 parts per trillion. And it's only 4 because that's as low as we can test. If it could be 0, that's what it would be. Who knows what's up there as far as PFAS goes? I got a ton of notes here. This is my life, so I'm going to try and be brief. So I'm going to try and conclude here. There is no way that this project should be allowed to proceed as proposed. At a minimum, the developer should be required to extend water lines from the Slatersville system to the proposed site. Absent of a public water supply, if for some God-foreseen, unforeseen reason you guys approve this with a on-site public water system, the developer should be required to install and pump test all the wells. They should all go in. And the data that's collected from those pump tests, along with the monitoring wells in the area, should then be populated in a groundwater model, which can be used to predict flow patterns. And maybe, we can determine whether or not there will be any negative influence on contaminant plumes in the area. If the model reveals no impacts and project is allowed to go forward with on-site wells, public water system, the developer should be required to post a bond sufficient to extend water lines to the area in the event that they do draw contaminants to the neighborhood. Honestly, to allow the project to go forward without municipal water and risk the health and safety of people who already live here would be negligent on the town's part, in my opinion. Everyone on this board, everyone on the town council is well aware of all the groundwater contamination in the area. And knowingly allowing the introduction of a new large volume withdrawal from the aquifer would be the definition of negligent, right? And a huge gamble with the health and safety of good people who already live there and pay taxes here. So I thank you for your time.
Who's next? Come on, a bunch of you had your hands up. There we go.
Tom McGee, 125 Black Plain Road. I agree totally with Jamie DeSells. He's 100% right. And, I don't care about projects. You want to do a project like that, it belongs in the right place with sewer and water. All I could see is if this goes through and we do the public well and all of that, it's going to be on our dime, just like everything else. When someone comes in, they do a public well and a septic system, and then what's going to happen? Every other condo or every developer that did a big project in this town always has to bring their infrastructure themselves. We always have to bring our own sewer, our own water. Why is this different that they don't have to bring their own water and sewer? It should definitely, without question, be water and sewer before you even talk about this project. That would be the main thing that would be my concern.
Okay.
And that's it. There's nothing else to say. I think Jamie said enough.
Great. Thank you. Who else? Oh. I think it's a little unfair. You didn't get any applause, and everyone else, you didn't get any applause, so it's, sorry.
Stephen D'Agostino, 1 Tabor Hill Road. So my property abuts Pound Hill Road, in front of the property. There's no way, and in all due respect, I don't care about a traffic expert, so there's no way 150 cars, and that's, or more, that road, Pound Hill Road, will support that kind of traffic daily, okay? Not to mention, and I agree with Jamie DeSalles as well, and Tom McGee, as far as the water and sewer. There's no way you're going to disperse those leach fields safely into that area without some type of contamination. There's no way, okay? So I'm not going to go on and on, but I concur with them.
All right, thank you. Who else? Oh, he's got. It is a tough crowd.
Good evening. My name is Gary Piantowski. I own property at 1070 Pound Hill Road. I'm retired now. I've developed probably close to $2 billion worth of projects in my career. And with no offense to the people that are here representing the owners, whoever they may be, this might be the dumbest project I've ever seen in my life. I mean, and I understand that you have to follow the state law. I've run adjudicatory proceedings for many, many years in Massachusetts, and I was a constitutional officer there. My house has 2 driveways, and the second driveway is the southern side where that 90-degree turn is on Pound Hill Road, when you come off of Route 5. I'd say in the last 10 years I've pulled 5 people out of cars on that turn, because I can hear them from my house. I have the big Spanish house that's right on about the 5th house down, and I've been there 32 years. I've never been to any town function or town board meeting. I do vote, but I've conducted my business out of state. I'm retired now. And the traffic impact here, I don't know what you people were thinking. That road is about 13 feet wide.
This way, this way.
I'm sorry. The road is about 13 feet wide, and that turn there is just horrible. The first lady that spoke, she was across the street from that. I'm sure she has heard them and seen them coming around that corner. And I know further down the street is the mining operation. They used to have the trucks going back and forth in front of us. I noticed they put a sign up now and they can't use that way. But the increased traffic on that road is incredible. And I just feel like, I don't know what the procedure is here. I know this is an informational hearing, but what are we talking about posting this, and what's the time frame for everybody's?
Well, this is a conceptual meeting.
Right.
As the attorney pointed out.
This doesn't require a special permit?
They're not at the point of, there's not even any approval to be given tonight. This is about exchanging ideas.
Yeah, I understand that.
So,
but what is the process of your board going forward?
Okay.
After a preliminary, what's next?
Well, so
this is pre-application.
At this point, it's a pre-application, so we don't have any formal application that's been submitted at all. This is just a general discussion. But there's a 2-step process, so it's preliminary and final approval. So when this application comes in, based on state law, they're required to have, believe it or not, all of their permits in hand.
Understand.
So they're here as, to take public comment, to understand what the concerns are before they go ahead and start doing engineering design and their investigation. So when this project comes back, if it comes back at preliminary, it will be a designed project. So, the traffic will be reviewed and considered. The septic will be reviewed and should have approvals. The water will be reviewed by the department. That should be approved. They're supposed to have all of their state permits in hand at that time. So it makes it a very difficult process.
With this type of project, would it require an environmental impact study?
There's no requirement for an environmental impact study
Well, it's
under the
commercial.
statute. Excuse me?
That property is currently, I know-
Unless there's an ELUR or something on the property that indicates that, there's no requirement for an environmental assessment on this property.
Well,
That-
it'll require a new curb cut, won't it?
It would require a permit, a state, if
That'll
that's a state
that'll
road, it
spur
would
an
require a
environmental
physical
impact.
by DOT?
Yeah.
Well, it may or it may not. It really depends on what the outcome of the
A
application
new curb
is.
cut or any kind of access or egress to that place would require that because of the water runoff because of the pitch of the road.
Well, that's potentially, unless they capture all the water, that's going to be up to DOT. Conceivably, if they capture the water on site and they don't increase the volume of runoff coming off the site, they wouldn't. But again, that's part of the permitting that they're going to have to do as part of the process, and they're going to have to come back. Those permits are supposed to be in hand. I think it's
Well, that's why, and just again,
An
to clarify,
unusual-
the rules changed. We used to be the developer, the applicant would actually fill out an application, put it in with some conceptual drawings like this, and the first step would be master plan. Master
Right.
plan, all about concept, exchanging ideas before they invest in the actual engineering of it, okay?
look-
With the change, that's not required, but the board certainly agrees with the attorney that we still, that conceptual meeting is important for all of us.
With a density on 7 acres of 62 units, would the town require a traffic impact study?
Well, we've already, we talked about that at the first meeting, that
I'm sorry, I
we will.
missed that.
But I will say, again, at the conceptual, at this point, we're not putting stipulations on because they haven't even applied yet.
Hypothetically, a typical project of
But we-
62 units on
we
7
have-
acres?
We call for traffic studies on much less than that.
Yeah. So
Basically,
That
yeah.
answers my
You know,
question.
to answer your question, I've had conversation with the attorney. You know, when the inquiry was made, we went back and forth, and I sent her a list of information that I normally look for.
So, yeah.
Traffic study was absolutely,
the
absolutely one of them. Now, just the way the process, and I think the attorney mentioned this before, the way the process used to be set up was they'd come in for master plan approval. You're looking at the master plan. That'd be the general conceptual plan. Even at that stage, I would have reviewed this and made recommendations to the board, including a list of stipulations. Some of those stipulations would be issues that are being mentioned this evening. We don't have that opportunity anymore, matter of fact. So, you know, it's a discussion back and forth, but whatever is required statutorily, they're going to have to submit.
Right.
They're here tonight listening. You know, there could be issues that are raised this evening that they're unaware of, which is something that normally would get raised under the master plan.
My apologies.
So I would imagine that when those come back, if it comes back at preliminary, they have their permits, we still do have the opportunity to review and attach stipulations moving forward. The stipulations have to be obviously directly related to the project in the land, and those stipulations would have to be met prior to final approval. Okay, so it kind of eliminates one of the stages, the earlier stage, where most of the due diligence can be done, most of our preliminary review in asking them for information at preliminary would be done, but that's been taken away from us now.
But that's why we're doing this. But as you can see, even from the first meeting, where we didn't get the public's, it was just conceptual, that in itself, hearing the concern, caused a significant design change.
Understand.
From hearing that. I'm sure they're hearing things now that will cause them to consider maybe even different design approaches than they assumed they would take. Certainly, if I was an engineer, that's how I was. I'm a software engineer, but it's the same idea. You hear the concerns and you direct them up front, because they're going to have to come back to us at preliminary, and they will have invested a lot of money in that.
I understand. My apologies, are you town council?
I'm the town planner.
Oh, okay. Right. My apologies. Who would my attorneys and engineering firm contact to get copies of everything from the town? You?
Well, so, yes, you would contact me, and I would provide for you any information that I have, which is you're looking
And
at.
anything that's submitted?
Anything that's submitted,
Yeah.
sure. I mean, you could contact me directly.
That's
and-
all public
Yeah, it's all going to be
information.
public information. Once I receive
Yeah.
it, it's public.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
Well, I just feel like the health and safety of this beautiful community that I love, and I've quietly lived here for 32 years. It's a wonderful town. putting a project like this on Pound Hill Road, as I said, and no offense to the people who were hired to represent those people, is really the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. I did read on one of the websites that there was a possibility that the town had an opportunity to buy it, but the time was too quick.
Yeah, that's.
Has the town considered going to the person that bought it?
I couldn't speak to that, but that would be a question for people on the town council or whatever. They don't let us manage money here.
Yeah.
I saw
I saw the information on the firms that were going to be here tonight, but who are the principals of this? The owner? Can someone? Oh, you are?
There we go.
Albany's?
Okay. So anyway,
Thank you.
Thank you. So I will, if I could just make this is not a competition for audience reaction. Okay, so let's just, right? We're not looking for applause. We're not looking for laughter. Let's just keep it all business, okay? Thank you. Please.
My name is Herb Angel. I live in the L-shaped house.
Can we have your address, please, sir?
I'm sorry, what?
Address.
1198 Pound Hill Road. So last month, if any of you recall, I approached them about that, and they made that small little change, and I appreciate that. I really do. So I was going to come here and talk out of both sides of my mouth. I was going to say, how can you rip apart my entire backyard, put a huge structure right out of my back window? Now, that side of my mouth is 48 years ago, I ate lunch in this room. I've been here my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
I've never left because this place is awesome. And now I have 8th grader and next year a kindergartner. So my interest in this town, and I'm invested in this town, and I went to high school through this town, and everything is about this town. I'm a teacher, and I tell these kids that I teach that if you work hard, you can live in a nice, quiet place. A good friend of mine said, and he's been to my house several times, the silence will be gone from your neighborhood if this is allowed. Now, we pay a lot in taxes. I pay for silence. I pay for, a peaceful town, for my boys, for everyone's boys. So the other side of my mouth I want to talk out of is everyone else's who is being impacted. And I keep hearing the state wants this. The state is going to force this down our throat. We can fight the state. We can stand up to the state. We don't have to eat everything that they feed us. They should have done their due diligence to say what else is going to happen to all of my neighbors, my parents, my brother, my sister. So they made a concession. They took out building number 4. But now it's not enough. This cannot be allowed to go because that silence that I love. Now, I graduated in 1989, and I've lived here. I just remain quiet. I help all my neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Godin, everyone. I love all my neighbors. And this impacts all of them, and I'm sure all of you. It's not just about us in the neighborhood. It affects the whole town. This takes away our peacefulness in that area. And I've never spoken in public. I speak to kids in classrooms, but I teach them to stand up for themselves. And that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carolyn Dellinger. I live at 515 Black Plain Road. My question is, what is going to be done for those who actually physically abut this property? My husband and I saved for many years to move to this type of community, to do the same, get away from the noise, get away from the busyness, get someplace quiet and peaceful. The property we own was owned by the man who owned the Pines. Our fence has a gate. that goes from our property over to that property. So what is going to be done for these properties to protect our safety and our privacy from this type of building? Because we moved here, we saved for years, and we moved here to get away from this. And now within 3 years, it's coming right back to our backyard. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, hang on. He beat you to it.
Joey Savigny, 1790 Pound Hill Road. Just a couple of points. I agree with Mr. DeSales. If they're going to put this in, there needs to be a bond for water. With that being said, I also agree with Mr. Angel. This doesn't belong in his backyard. It's going to affect all of us. My question is you're building these units. What are we looking at for fire protection? Are we looking to put just fire alarms in these buildings? Are we looking to sprinkler them? If you're looking to sprinkler them, what are you looking for a water tank, fire pumps? There's a lot that goes into all of this. I mean, everybody, the developers sitting here saying they want input from the town, they want to know our feelings, they want to know what our thoughts are. Well, I can tell you what my thoughts are. 3 houses there and that's it. It doesn't belong 62 apartments. You want to build something, build 3 houses like everybody, other developer in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Watch out.
Hi, my name is Josh Dellinger. I live at 515 Black Plain. First and foremost, I agree with everything that has already been said this evening, so I'm not going to reiterate any of those points.
Thank you.
So my questions are, first of all, what is the green tail at the top of the map supposed to represent? That's the wetlands. So I'm not sure why their image has that green going into the wetlands and what that's supposed to represent. Sorry. And then secondly would be a recommendation if the folks behind the project are open and receptive to feedback, which it sounds like they are. The project, if they move forward with the proposal, is going to be named the Pines Apartments, I believe is what was discussed or shared last month. My understanding of the property is that the name The Pines comes from a grove of white pine trees that exists on this property that happens to exist exactly where Building 2 is proposed to be located. So my question is, or maybe recommendation, if they're proposing to eliminate much or most of the namesake of the property, perhaps they don't perpetuate the name as part of the project name.
Okay, thank you.
Scott Walling, 563 Greenville Road. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but Mr. DeSales brought up a big point, Stamina Mills. I was born and raised, lived right across the street from Stamina Mills. My sister, at 5 years old, died of leukemia. My mother and my aunt, who were born and raised in that house, had 3 children apiece, and both come down with muscular dystrophy. My aunt is going to be 82 years old, is all she can do is this. I can't relate the contaminated water was our problem for my family. But I can tell you, we were part of the people that drilled artesian wells, and the state came in, tested them, cannot use them to water, $7,000 in a hole. My parents got nothing back in 1979. And Monks, 13 other neighbors. We were all on a well system for those mill houses. We all needed to get new water. That's how we got water. The state brought in drinking water for us. But this development, water is the key to this whole thing. And I want you to realize, my family didn't have a chance. And my mother died of 5 cancers as well. My family did not have a chance. We didn't know we were drinking contaminated water. So if this goes in and starts drawing water, like Mr. DeSales said, we had dodged a bullet. All those people that are around that facility could get affected. So I ask you all to think, if he can get a trunk line of water in there, do what you can do. But to draw off that site with the hazardous waste sites that surround that property, I don't want anybody else to go through what we did. And to make a joke out of this, I was 18 years old when we discovered we had contaminated water, trichloethylene. My grandmother worked at that mill, saw them dumping it in the ground. They claimed they had an accident. There was no accident. They were dumping it in the ground. But in leading to this, my mother was a little aggravated at me, said I was glad that you were not drinking the water and you were drinking Budweiser. I can't be proud of that now, but maybe that's something to it. So I just really, water is the key thing here, and if you disturb what's already there, big problems.
Thank you.
I'm not an expert, but I don't want anybody to have that, what we had in our family. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? Right.
Hello, Erica Millette, 15 Taylor Drive. I'm in a butter on the top side of that picture. So something that hasn't been brought up yet is potential trespassing, just with so many people being added to that area. So I just wanted to note there is a pond, obviously at the top of that stream. And even with an abandoned restaurant, today we have people who come and dump things in the back, who go fishing in the pond and walk all over that. So, you know, as the plan begins to change, I'd like to hear how that might be addressed and curbed for the surrounding community. Also, just a quick clarifying question, because I'm not too familiar with the processes. Will this be the last opportunity for public input, or will we
No.
see the plan?
No, there'll be
Okay.
public hearing at both preliminary and final.
Thank you. Another item I'll just touch on quickly, public transportation is not available, again, for the number of people there. I know we talked about the number of units and the supposition that ones and twos types of units don't have a lot of family, don't lend themselves to a lot of large families, but I'd just like to hear more about the maximum population allowable in those units. Also, would like to know if they're intending to focus the community on elderly or disabled populations, or if it's just the income requirement that governs that. I don't think we've heard yet about the number of stories for each of these buildings. I think we've heard about square footage, but given that it's a general mock-up, I'd like to hear more about the height. Sorry if I missed that in the last meeting. There was also a question in the last session about lighting being a concern in the parking lot, so I just wanted to raise that again in hopes that we can get an answer to the plans for that. And I don't think we've pointed out where all the wells and septics and everything are, so as you go forward with the water considerations, just understanding where those are relative to all the property lines. I think it was mentioned that there was going to be an EPA meeting. We haven't heard the outcome. I assume that will all be included in the next touch point. Another concern on the environmental aspect is trash. Given the number of units, several dumpsters, and that sort of situation will need to be figured out. Given the wetlands and the surrounding natural habitat, I'd be concerned about trash just flowing out, migrating out of that area. Sometimes, you know, you fence in the dumpsters, that's not enough. We've had town cleanups every Earth Day that go around businesses where trash has flowed into our waterways and our nature. And then wildlife, of course, is always a concern. I've got to speak for the deer who cross through there every day. You know, just thinking about the construction, even a single family home disrupts that every time. So again, I'll echo the previous comments about what is the intended term of construction, how many years is this expected to go on based on the funding and the plans for the order of building and all of that. The question was brought up earlier, I'll just second it, regarding the 30-year requirement on income. I understand that can be extended. What are the stipulations around, can that actually change to a Section 8 situation, or will it stay just affordable? And I'd also like to hear more about the role of the monitoring agency. How often do they verify income? And what's the process if someone drops below or goes above the requirements? I understand that's not our business to govern, but just to be informed. I'd like to hear from that. I think that's just about it. I'll echo the other concerns about fire. Just one more point, I guess. Obviously, the cistern, especially if there's a sprinkler systems, is a giant question. I also always think worst case scenario. So if there is a fire, is the community prepared to displace the folks who would need support in an event of an emergency?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Going once? Yep.
Good evening, Bob Dubois, 806 Pound Hill Road. I've only lived in this town for 75 and a half years. Right, so, yeah, I know a little bit of history, and Dr. Benoit. This town has been plagued by water problems. Taylor Drive, Rainbow Lane. Is that situation remedied? I don't know. I think they still get bottled water. Forestdale, Main Street, School Street. Water problems. Trying to think of the other spot that I'm going through.
Mechanic Street.
I'm sorry?
Mechanic Street?
Mechanic Street. Yeah, that.
There you go.
Yeah. The town has been plagued by these water problems. You have a Superfund site at what we call the old dump, the landfill on Oxford Road. We had a dump on Providence Pike many, many, many years ago. Right? The whole town is plagued with water problems. And here, I wouldn't be upset if they wanted to build 3 houses on that land. Build 3 nice houses. People in North Smithfield are probably median income. Maybe some are well-to-do. Build those 3 houses. Never mind 62 apartments with 200 people, possibly. We're just inviting more problems if that goes through. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Can I just add one more thing?
Certainly.
Back in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, I was actually employed by the Slatersville Water System, and we had spent thousands and thousands of dollars to redevelop a well on Tiff Road that had been in place since the 50s. And we had the groundwater models that proved that just replacing that well with another one would have no impact at all on the plume from the landfill. In fact, there's a hydrogeological barrier that would have prevented leachate from the landfill flowing towards Tiff Road. And I went to a lot of meetings, and the town spent a lot of money, and that project was squashed ultimately by the town council because they were afraid they were going to draw water from the landfill. So, I mean, if we can't, with good scientific data, be allowed to draw water with the threat of drawing from that plume, I don't understand how we could even be considering this.
Good. All right. Thank you. Just one more thing.
Just one more. It's not related to water, I promise. Given the longevity, the 30-year, again, plan for the affordable housing, and I assume that gets deeded in and all that, just wanted to maybe hear from the developers at some point about how they plan to build to a quality to maintain that longevity and maintain the property as well to make sure it doesn't fall into disrepair and cost us money on the side of blight and all of that, especially, again, given the length of the construction process, thinking through, is the funding and whatnot, recession-proof? Should they hit hard times? We don't want any half-built, half-abandoned buildings, that sort of thing.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the last thing.
All right. Is that the last thing? Yes. All right. Pardon? All right. You're like that person that finally gives in to the temptation at karaoke and says, all right, I'll sing too.
I might be opening up, I don't know, my name's David Letwell, and I live across from Herb Angel. And I didn't even have a clue about this until my friend told me about this EPA fund zone. And because I guess him and the Cub Scouts used to hike around the area. And I was reading an article in, what was it called? The Valley Breeze. And I was just wondering, well, like, maybe if the council can tell me, like, when's the last time they did a test on the old Oxford Road EPA Superfund site? Because I think what it said in there that they didn't have to like treat it or anything because the bacteria level was kept down. And when I heard about this project, I'm saying like I don't know, everybody tells me because of the Nike site, don't drink the water, don't drink the water. But I still drink the water, but I don't know, it's just that like when they said that, and I'm saying like, you got like probably like about 62 units, let's just say over 100 people with showers, laundry, cooking, and it seemed like all the surrounding area, everybody uses well water, and it just seemed like you're opening up a can of worms because you're sucking up bacteria that's kept to a standstill. And when they said, like, I'm very green, and I may be talking out of my hat, but when they talked about we got to meet 10% for low income, I thought there was a project going on at the old Tupperware site where someone was supposed to be developing low-income housing over there. But
Well,
thank you for your...
Just to clarify, it's affordable versus low
I mean,
income.
all right,
Low income is a different.
affordable housing.
Right. Gotcha.
But I just wanted to say, like, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. We're done, right? Is that, everybody done? I'll look for a motion to close the informational hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to just make one correction, unless.
Okay. Well, point of order, close the hearing and then have them address everything, or have them address now?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a procedural decision. If you want to keep the hearing open in the event that somebody else wants to speak after the attorney clarifies several points, that may be the more prudent course, and then
Okay.
you close it.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, and on more than one, I mean, maybe now would be a good time to start addressing, you know, you've been taking a lot of notes.
Well, I've been taking a lot of notes, but I'm not going to be able to answer all the questions.
Understood.
I am not a water expert, but, you know, we will have engineers that do the studies that hopefully show that the wells will be adequate. I think that the first set of questions were the more general questions that I could respond to, relating to traffic. Obviously, there were several different questions about traffic, the curve, the amount of traffic, that will all be addressed. You know, we heard comments about how the project will abut properties, so we'll look into that. I mean, these are all things that we're happy to look into and address as best we can. You know, we're going to comply with all fire codes, building codes, ordinances of the town. So a lot of the comments had to do with, you know, the quality of the construction, or will we conform to the fire code? Of course we will. There was a question about the green tail at the
Yes.
top of the map. Can you respond to that?
So that green tail and the green area behind the existing Pines Restaurant building is currently paved. So we had a preliminary meeting with Rhode Island DEM, and they suggested, or they would appreciate if we could remove that pavement. So what you see there is that green is just an area that's going to be removed pavement.
So it's going to be reclaimed.
Exactly.
Okay.
And restored back to a natural,
Okay.
either, you know, grass or some sort of shrub planting or something like that.
Okay. Thank you. There were some specific areas around security as well, including the fence with the gate and all that?
Yeah, I
Maybe
mean,
you could address those?
You know, again, in terms of security, you know, we will ensure that the property is secure. These are comments we're just hearing, but, you know, gates or removal of gates, if that's appropriate, fencing, you know, that will all be addressed. Dumpster, what's that?
Yeah, that was-
With landscaping.
Yeah, the trash.
I'm just trying to go through, because a lot of them were somewhat.
The trash concern?
Yeah, you know, we will propose where the dumpsters will go. Generally, you know, as you know, you pay attention to dumpsters and you want adequate screening, and we will do that. The number of stories is 2 for each building. I don't know what the height is. I don't think we can tell you exactly what the height is today.
Well, our ordinance is
Right, it's gonna-
35 feet, so
We'll
2
comply-
stories should be comfortably under that.
Right, we'll comply with the ordinance. Well, it is a comprehensive permit, but 35 feet seems enough for 2 stories, yes. So the one procedural item I want to correct is, again, this is new state law, and I'm not saying that we won't have state permits, but the new law says that we can apply for preliminary plan without state permits. Oftentimes, as you know, the engineer will have spoken to DEM and DOT if necessary, and they will have comments. I mean, we have to be pretty confident that the items are going to be approved by the state. The state law does not require state permits until final plan. That doesn't mean we're not going to have them, but I don't want to come back not having them and not having corrected the record.
Gotcha. Fair enough. Mr. Carrillo, you satisfied with that?
I'm satisfied with that.
Okay.
The old standard was permits in
Right.
hand. They will comply with the statute.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, I think I've addressed as best I can at this stage, which is pre-app, everything I can address. There's certain things I can't commit to, but, you know, we will consider everything. And again, I haven't heard from anybody, but if there's something special that particularly the adjacent abutters want to talk about, you know, I think it's important to do that so that when we come back, we have addressed those concerns. But I think that's it at this point, unless, we'd love to hear your feedback as well.
Right. And I was just going to ask if anyone on the board have any questions or comments on what we heard today from the public, and whether you feel there's anything else that could be addressed better, or, you know, chime in on a recommendation, et cetera. No, all set? No?
I do have something.
Dr. Roberts?
Yeah. I'm just repeating what I said at our last meeting. I was looking for what I said in the minutes, but I also expressed concern at the last meeting about the Superfund site, about the water being drawn, about modeling, about wanting to see what would actually happen with how much water would be predicted to be removed from there. So I'm very concerned about that as someone on this board and as someone who lives in this community and as someone with lived experience, like other residents have mentioned, related to Superfund sites in this community. So that's a huge, huge concern of mine. I just want it to be on the record again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Ramos?
Yeah, thank you. I second that, Cynthia. I think the water, obviously, is a huge concern. Environmental in general is very concerning. I don't know if you can answer at this point. One of the questions that came up was, do you know what the maximum occupancy is in any of these units?
No, I mean, it's going to be a mix of 1s and 2s. So, I mean, you know, one thing I heard is a lot about school-age children. We can't discriminate. We can't say you can only have so many kids in schools. And we can't, I mean, if a family wants to move in, there's minimum housing rules where you can't have 7 people live in a 2-bedroom, probably.
Right.
But I don't think that we can limit the amount of people that live there. What we do is we provide data as to what typically happens in ones and twos.
Well, related to that too was the question about sort of the target demographic and whether the monitoring, you know, whether the application process and then the subsequent monitoring has any requirements beyond income. And therefore it might be mostly, you know, could be mostly older people who are downsizing versus younger people that maybe have young children, all that. Is there anything more you can share on the application and monitoring process? Because that came up. There was some specific
Well, the
questions.
monitoring process for our, what we believe will be our application is for family housing. So in other words, when I say that, I mean not specifically for elderly. It's not an over 55 community, unless, you know, they want to change their minds. And it's not geared specifically towards disabled people, but obviously we would accept either. So it's really just a matter of income requirements.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
I think so. Do you have anything else?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? Ms. Porter?
I would also echo the concerns about the water. We've heard quite a bit of that this evening, so I don't feel I need to do any more of that. And again, as far as, you know, building codes, zoning codes, that's, I would expect nothing less, being the resident architect on the board right now. I think the last time we also did speak about having landscape plans when you do come back, if and when you do come back for us, just to illustrate how you are addressing the concerns that you heard this evening with neighboring abutters here. And
Well, as well,
and
as,
this
well
is-
as you had mentioned the, what do you call it, with the different views,
right, a section through the
Sections,
site,
right.
some sections through the site to understand
to see
elevation
the,
changes.
to see the view that the abutters will have.
Yep.
Okay.
And then this might be a question more for Mark and our solicitor as well. But is there any way that, since this is a new law, it's been brought on by Rhode Island Housing, is there a way that we can have a workshop with a Rhode Island Housing monitoring agent so we can get a lot of these questions answered and resolved? Because I'm going to guess that this is not going to be the first, this will be the first application we have come in front of us because of this. So is there like an informational workshop, so then that way everybody gets a better understanding of how that monitoring process works? We're not posing all the questions to applicants, how does it work, and we actually have someone that's doing it? Is that something that we could look at doing?
Yeah, we can check with Rhode Island Housing. They may have someone that they can refer us to.
Okay.
You know, monitoring agents, they usually are nonprofits, I believe, and they
Sure.
They do things for fees and.
Right. Yep. I just think that would provide us with a.
I will reach out to Rhode Island Housing. We actually met today with Housing RI, which isn't Rhode Island Housing, but they're Housing RI, and had a long conversation with them, and we talked about actually them coming in and having conversations with the planning board and the council
Okay.
about housing and housing issues. We actually invited them if they wanted to come this evening and observe. They were
Okay.
busy. But I'll look into that and see if we can get someone to come in.
I think that
Yeah.
would provide a level of clarity for everybody that's involved in this process, not just the planning board, but for town council, for the townsfolk. It will be on YouTube, so anybody can get a look at it. So that's just my thought. So if we could arrange that, that would be fantastic.
And GrowSmart might be another resource, right?
I think out of Bryant, the Housing Works might be one that we can
Roger
look to.
Williams.
Roger Williams, I'm sorry, thank you.
Brenda Clement.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, and again, so I want to be clear, just for the record, this isn't a new law. Comprehensive permit applications have been around for a long time. But as you know, you've been going through your zoning ordinances for changes. The legislature made significant changes to the Zoning Enabling Act and the Development Review Act and the comprehensive, well, it's the Low and Moderate Income Housing Act, such that some of the rules have changed, as I've just described, where We don't have to have our state approvals until final plan. Some of the standards have changed. We don't do master plan anymore. But this process has always been an effective process. I don't know, I don't know, maybe in the 90s, Mark, I don't know if you remember, but it's just a little bit different. It's been revised, and it's, again, intended to promote housing across the state, so. With regard to the monitoring agent, I do understand that I'm involved with another application. The monitoring agents are often very willing to come to hearings to make sure that you're educated, the residents are educated on how the process works.
Okay.
So we'd probably have somebody from whomever we choose at the next meeting.
Okay, great. Dr. Benoit?
In the interest of transparency, how is a development like this taxed by the town?
Well, I think it's taxed like any other property unless we were to ask for some special treatment. I mean, so the state law provides not just for these density bonuses, but for additional subsidies. And that can be in the form of a tax agreement. But otherwise, I mean, I'll have a better answer for you next time. But my understanding is it's taxed just like any other property, whatever the value is, whatever the income is. And if I'm wrong, I will correct.
Could you perhaps explain the 8 law?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
So the 8 law is something that's existed for a very long time, where if you have substantially rehabilitated a property that's, I'll just say affordable, something, but not like this, because we're not rehabilitating an existing affordable project. You are subject to the law that says you get, the community gets 8% of the income. That's how that works. This would not be subject to that.
We have a project on Greenville Road and believe the maximum tax the town can receive is 8% of the gross annual income. But that was not a rehabilitation project. That was a brand-new project.
It's been a long time since I've done those. I used to do a lot of them in the early 2000s. I don't know if the law has significantly changed, but the concept is if you meet the requirements of the 8 law, you're taxed to 8% of the income. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you have any, Mr. Solicitor, you have any comments on that?
No, I think it's been a positive, open forum. I think the attorneys answered all the questions with a candid, open way, and procedurally, if there are any more questions, I know a woman in the background raised her hand.
Actually,
Go.
I have one.
Sure.
I think I heard a couple of people mention water. So
right.
I was wondering if there has been any consideration as you're discussing design to bringing in an external water source or connecting to town sewer.
I don't think so.
No?
I mean, again, we have to do our engineering, so.
Okay. I would recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
Put it out there. Okay. Does somebody else have a question?
I feel like there's a disconnect between what I'm hearing and what we're actually asking for. I honestly don't care if their source is adequate for their property or there's contamination or not on their property right now. I really don't care. What we need is assurances, throwing stuff at me, that whatever happens on that site does not affect our water supply. And that's either done by bringing in a municipal water line, or they install all their water system and they do testing and pump testing, and we see what the influence on the area is. It's not just simply going in there and drawing a sample out of the Pines well right now, because I know that's fine.
Right.
It's more detailed than that. It's actually a hydraulic model. That's what I'm asking for.
Mm-hmm.
I just want that to be clear, because I keep hearing we're gonna say it's adequate. I don't care that it's adequate for that site.
Right.
We need protection.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Thank you. Okay. So with that, I think we're ready to close the informational hearing.
I'll make a motion, close the public, informational hearing.
And a sec, oh, I'm sorry. We didn't have a hand up.
I rescind my motion.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Rose Lambert. I'm just too chicken to come up here, but again, it's the water issue that I'm worried about. I live 1219 directly across from the Pines. I want to know if something happens and they do this, who's going to take care of us? Who will fix it? You know, or I've been there 23 years myself.
Right.
And I had a list too, but everybody mentioned everything already. But the big
Great.
concern is the water. The road is you know, it needs work. I was told that the road is going to be worked on this year. Is that true, or anybody know anything about that?
That's a DPW question, but yeah.
I think there might be reference to that.
Because they've replaced, or years ago, I don't know how many now, maybe 5 or 10, Pound Hill, like past Route 5. But, you know, we're after that, and they've never done anything, and it's really, you know, needs work.
I don't know if the
Yeah,
current
I would
DPW
reference recent town council meetings. I believe there was comment maybe 2
Right.
meetings ago from the DPW, but
Okay.
I have seen, I also live on Pound Hill and I've seen trucks, so
Yeah.
I would reference publicly available information agendas, but I do think
Yep.
that's in the works.
Right, and with no sidewalks, no water hydrants, you know, all of that is a big concern.
Okay.
You know, but the water issue, I want to know if they mess up my water, where do I go? You know,
Gotcha.
because that's my concern.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So now, let's try it again.
I'm just waiting for hands. Just give it one more time.
Uh,
I'll make a motion to close the informational hearing.
And we have a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. The informational hearing is closed at 8:41. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Did we have another item on the agenda? Oh, really?
Yeah.
And we have everybody here.
Doc, you don't want to elect officers? Be right back. Okay.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Good job, tight facilitation, with a little humor, a little education.
You gotta do that sometimes, you know. I try to make it, whenever possible, self-deprecating, but, you know.
I went to school with her and Joe when I was
Oh, did you?
Because I left
Yeah.
Smithfield in 6th grade. It was before that, but I remember him.
He brings all the emotion everybody needs to this. He keeps talking about my backyard. Actually, his backyard ends. I mean, sorry, buddy, you don't own that land. And that was not a minor concession. They said, we're not going to build that building. We're going to go over here. Like, it's actually a big design change, you know? This was the definition of NIMBY.
I know it. Libertarianism. Yeah. I am very concerned.
We can. We do if we could move conversation out, we do have a little more business to do.
Excuse me, folks. Excuse me. We're still having a meeting, so if you could take your conversations outside, we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
But you know, there were a few people, like the woman in green that came up at the end, and even the big guy, very clearly articulated and different thoughts. Hey, whoa, good thought, you know. There's a lot of good stuff, and quite frankly, that's why I said you really should consider. You really should consider another way to bring water.
Sell it back to the town.
Yeah. Okay.
Where would they have to go to get it?
I don't know. We don't have it. We don't have it on our time, and I'm fairly close, but we don't have it.
Is Industrial Drive, like down at
Oh, I would think it's soon. Okay. All right. We ready here?
We are ready.
All right.
Let's do this.
Next item on the agenda of business, public meeting election of officers. Could you run us through that process that I know we do it every year, but I always forget.
It kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed, until we had a full
Yeah, we do it
contingent.
Yeah.
I thought Doc Benoit was gonna try and sneak out so you couldn't vote.
There you go.
Mr. Chairman, usually the planner will take over as the
That's what I thought.
handling the realignment. And I'm going to make a motion right off to
you
retain
go.
the existing slate of officers.
Who's our secretary
And
then?
we-
Just a question.
Do we have one?
We used to have one.
It was Rich King.
Oh,
I think we need to fill that position.
Okay.
yeah, so we can't.
Well,
Is that just like designated survivor? Like what is the?
we used to have, we always had a
It
secretary.
doesn't have a large role here like it does in some of the boards.
That's what it's asking.
Yeah.
Right, that's what
Yeah.
it's asking.
Do we have a volunteer for a secretary?
Why don't
Would you like to be secretary?
No.
Who would like to be
Does he have to be a
secretary?
board member?
Who would like to be on the list to be secretary? On this board, yes.
It's in the event that.
But in the event of the chair and the
Well,
vice chair.
it's a
yeah, that's
pecking
why I
order
was
thing, like
making
if
a
neither of us are
designated
here, you
survivor
become
case.
chair. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
That's-
It's a succession,
You still have an acting chair.
succession order thing.
I haven't been on long enough to take over as either one of those two positions, so I'm gonna step down on that nomination.
I think that puts you in the hot seat.
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah, Doc's got the experience.
I'd love to be. Thank you.
You brought it up. Okay, so there we go, Mr. Carullo. You have a nomination for keeping,
I'll make a motion to
Current
close the nominations.
so,
So we have a nomination for existing chair and vice chair and Dr. Benoit as the secretary. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Do we want to do a roll call vote, or do we just all?
You're in charge, sir.
that's right, you are in charge.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
We had an administrative subdivision.
But
says
there's
none.
no business, so we're looking for adjournment at this
I already
point.
seconded.
I'd love to hear that.
Just say yes.
Yes.
Those in favor?
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned.